Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Rise and Recreate podcast. This is a space for people who have lived many versions of themselves and are brave enough to keep choosing the truth, even when it changes everything. I'm your host, Raechel Shanny, and today we are joined by Megan Nicole, the creator of Her Sacred Return. Now, Megan's journey is one of deep transformation, moving through identity shifts, love, grief, and rebirth, and ultimately choosing a path that brought her back to herself in a whole new way. Megan, I'm so happy to have you here today, and I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about where you are today, and then I'll have you take us back on a journey of what your life looked like before everything began to shift for you.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to share my story. It's been a little sticky one that I have been hesitant to kind of share with the world, but it's mine and I'm ready to speak on it. Um, I am a feminine somatic womb guide, so I help women, find tension in their bodies and drop deeper into their bodies and ground with the earth to move through sticky situations. And I am a new mom to a little baby who's 3 months old. His name is Theo, and he is the greatest gift of my life. But yeah, that's where I am.
3 months old, congratulations.
Thank you.
So it sounds like, I will just say there's something very empowering when you finally are ready to own your own story and share it with the world. Because when we look back in hindsight, there are so many lessons that we've learned that really have helped create who we are today. So I would love for you to just take us back to a time where you almost felt like you were living a life that you didn't belong in, where you're like, this is my life. This is my reality. I know I got here. I know there's lessons, but this is starting to feel like a life I no longer want to live. And so if you'll just take us back to that time.
Definitely. I was in a long-term queer lesbian relationship um, with a wonderful woman. And our relationship was very synchronistic. We had so much in common, and a lot of our lives were like very aligned, like same place, same time. Um, and so for a while, it was, like a really great thing. And we thought we had found each other's person, but slowly over time, uh, there were just like little things like in my gut or in my dreams that were like pinging of like a different reality. So it took a while for me to kind of understand what that meant, um, and even bring it up in conversation. Um, but eventually I did, and it took a while to kind of for her to be kind of receptive to that. Um, but we did eventually kind of get to a place where we both kind of saw like a different reality for our lives, and we went like our separate ways in like a romantic sense. And now we're here.
So I'd love for you to dive in a bit deeper on, you said you kept having these like gut feelings. And now were you
Mhm.
familiar at the time with like what your intuition was? Had your intuition ever guided you prior to this in life? Or was it still something really new where you're like, what is this? I don't know if I can trust it.
I was definitely like in tune to my intuition and lots of like other senses. I think this one specifically, it was just kind of really hard for me to kind of accept because our relationship was so deep and I didn't really see anything else. So like, of course, this is my person, right? Like, why would it, not be? Um, but just tapping into like different dreams that I was having, I would wake up and I was like, oh, like, why am I having these dreams? Like, what does that mean? You know? And just over time, my curiosity uh, was deepened of like, well, what would my life look like if I were, with a man or something like that? So that was just something that I wanted to explore. Also, within the span of this relationship, it was like almost 6 years. I myself was changing so drastically and so fast that I was like a completely different person on like the inside and the outside within the span of a few years. So it was kind of like it took a while for me to kind of get used to, and I was like, "Oh, is this part of me changing too?" You know?
Mhm.
So
I think it's a toughie. I've been here before where I thought I found my soulmate and coming to a realization of, "Oh, shit, this actually might not be it," but you're so ingrained in the belief of that story. So I would love for you to talk on how that felt for you to almost, like, break up with that reality and be like, "Okay, I think there might be somebody else out there for me, and my curiosity is leading me this way, and I'm gonna try it." Like, what did that feel like in your body?
It was definitely scary.
Mhm.
It was scary, like, having to start over and, like, find someone new and, like, uh, because of the deep connection that me and this person had, I was like, am I gonna find this in someone else, you know? Am I
Mhm.
gonna find that, like, pure alignment, but in the shape of a male body, I guess. There's a lot of different energy to it, but yeah, I it was definitely scary, but it was also exciting.
Yeah.
There was a lot of grief, like, letting go of that relationship and moving on, um, but also it felt kind of freeing in the sense of there were so many other parts of myself or new parts of myself that I got to, like, express.
Definitely, definitely. So, but then because that is so true that when this is happening, you have all of these doubts of, "Oh my gosh, did I, first of all, make the right decision? Is it even possible for me to find a love like this? Am I crazy for trusting my gut and my dreams and going for this thing that I have 0 proof is going to work out for me?" So, twofold question. Number 1, what did you do when these thoughts came up of, "I don't know if I can actually do this," all of the limiting beliefs, right? And then number 2 would be like, how did you actually hold on to that belief of, "I will find this"?
Uh, I just I just full trusted, you know, like, there was no other option but to trust what was in my gut,
Mhm.
after so long of, feeling deep inside that there was something else out there, and every other instance of my life previously where I would have those feelings, I was, like, just full trust in God, like, I just know deep down that there is a person out there for me and that everything is gonna work out for the better, even though it king sucks right now, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then what was the question before? The
Well,
other question?
when those thoughts would come up of like, "Am I crazy for doing this? Am I actually gonna find this person? How am I even gonna find this person?" Like, what would you do when those thoughts start to arise?
I let myself feel, like, the full expression of every feeling that I was moving through.
Mm.
So it was rough for a while, for, like, good, like, 6 months to a year, which I know in the like, some it was interesting, like, going through this breakup because, like, I don't know, people experience things so many different, and it's like, "Oh, that was really quick," or, like, moving on really quick and grieving, whatever, but it was really deep, really fast, for me and moving to the other side of it. But I allowed myself to go through the shit feeling and
Mhm.
just exist however I needed to exist in any given moment, you know?
Right, and not suppress it.
Yeah.
That tends to drag it out longer for sure, and I also think with the timing piece, first of all, time is irrelevant when you are moving through
Mhm.
heartbreak. It's different for every single person, it's different for every single relationship, like, it really is. I've been in really long-term relationships where, the grieving process lasted an extended amount of time, but then I've been in a quick relationship where I had deep feelings and I grieved longer for that person than I did the person I was in an extended relationship with. So it just
Yeah.
there is no perfect little box that heartbreak fits in. It just sucks until one day you're like, "I think I'm okay." So when you were, moving through that and starting to feel like, I guess more of an empowered version of yourself, like, okay, I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons. I'd love to hear the story of how you ended up finding this person who you now have a 3-month-old child with, or if there was anybody else in between, or if this just happened.
There was definitely some exploration in between.
For sure.
I went on a many of dates, and a lot of them sucked,
Yep.
and, I had a short, uh, relationship with someone who was absolutely shit. Um, it was quick, fast, deep, and very torturous. And there was like a lot of stuff that I went through with that person. That messed me up for a while. Like myself, I just completely let myself be shot on basically. Like my self-worth went into the toilet and I was like, how am I here? Like I know how powerful I am and how much I am worth and like the love that I, deserve and this is not it. So why am I, letting myself be here? Um so I finally like had the strength to give that up. Um and then, like, immediately, as soon as I let that go, this wonderful man walks into my life. Had no idea that I would be here now. But yeah, he was basically like literally everything I was looking for. Like, our connection is so deep, so wonderful. He is so patient and kind and just all of the amazing things. And again, time is really bizarre. Like, we've lived 10 years together in 2 years. And now we have a wonderful, adorable little 3-month-old baby.
Oh, I love that. And that is some powerful life lesson there, right? So it's like you jump out of one relationship with full trust of I'm leaving this behind with full trust I'm going to find another one. But then this sneaky little one catches you off guard and it's almost like you kind of attach to it because you're like, okay, I don't really feel like this is the person, but this is the person in my life right now. And maybe it could be. And so you put up with shit you wouldn't normally put up with because you're like, maybe this was it. And then you get to a point where you're like, this absolutely cannot be it. And I still have no proof that what it is, it exists, but I'm letting this go. And I'm just going to once again trust that it's going to come to me. And it was like, once you let the baggage go and the one that was not meant for you, the one that was meant for you swooped in. And so for somebody listening to this who's going through a similar scenario, maybe they thought they had found the one and now they find themselves single and they're not really, maybe they haven't built that trust, right? Maybe it was they got heartbroken and the person they thought was their soulmate just left them and they don't have that trust that they're going to find somebody else. What advice would you give them to tap into the belief that it will work out for them?
It is so hard to give that up and, like, go through such a heartbreak of, someone that you thought was the one isn't, on whoever side that it is. Um, if it's you're the one that's, desiring something else or, your person is the one who's, like, wanting to leave. Either way, it is really, really hard and to let yourself feel that, but just know how much you are worth and the love that is possible. Just like breathe into yourself, into your womb, into your heart, and like just trust. It's just surrender. Like it's really hard, but you just kind of have to like open your arms up and just like let the wondrous life come to you, you know? Just be
Ooh,
so open and receptive to all that life has to offer and just just full surrender.
I love that. Maybe we can take a moment right here to just put like a hand on our heart and a hand on our womb. And if you want to just guide us through like just a tiny little like belief breath work session, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Um, just taking a second to bring your hands to your heart and to your womb. If you're sitting wherever you are, just let your sits bones feel whatever is beneath you. Taking a few deep belly breaths. Maybe a little sound out. And just bringing an awareness to the breath, to the life that is in between your hips and your womb space. That energy that births life, that births babies, that births creative projects, ideas, Just tap into that feeling. So much is possible with this energy, this life energy. Maybe visualizing a little golden light that's in between your hips at that source center where that energy originates. And with each breath, see that golden light getting a little bit bigger, illuminating a little bit more. Letting it spread across your whole body and just hold you. And just bask in that golden light, that life and that love that is holding you, that is meant for you. That is your energy. Three more breaths. You can come back to your space whenever you're ready.
Mm, that was beautiful. Okay, so I typically in these podcasts don't really share my story, but this is too much of a synchronicity to not share. So, for those of you listening, Megan and I were actually supposed to meet last Friday, and things happened and we weren't able to do the podcast. Within that week span between last Friday and today, the relationship that I am currently in is starting to crumble. And since I've started this podcast, like these podcasts are just as much for me as they are for everyone else. And the amount of growth and learnings that I have are crazy. But the timing of this for this podcast to have been put off, and within the span of a week, I'm actually in like the scenario of what it is this podcast is about and what we're talking about with like breaking up with this idea that you have in your head because the story you've created around this person is like, this is the one, this is who I want to be with. But then your gut deep down inside saying, oh, I really don't actually think it is. And the difference between what your heart and what your mind feels sometimes. And knowing deep down inside that it is like your intuition that is always really right and not the stories that you create in your head. And so this is just such a beautiful reminder of like the synchronicities in life and really tapping into yourself. And at the end of the day, before I make a decision, I'm going to have to do that really hard, scary thing where I'm going to have to be very open and vulnerable with this person and see, like, are they capable of meeting me here? And do they share this same vision that I see for us both? And am I going to get my heart broken in person? And how scary it is to be vulnerable. And I would love for you to talk on this because after a 6-year relationship and looking somebody in the eyes that you loved deeply and being vulnerable with them and telling them this is not for me anymore. I don't see this continuing. Like, first walk us through how you were able to manage that and then what advice you have for somebody who is like, "Oh gosh, I'm going to have this hard conversation too."
Sure. Um, to be honest, it wasn't it was like a lengthy process. I feel like it kind of took the span over like a year or two, honestly, of like slowly kind of bringing this forward in the conversation, and just kind of discussing like what would our relationship look like going forward. Um, and it took a second for her to be kind of receptive. And we kind of went about it in not just like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna go our separate ways," but like, "Maybe we'll open up the relationship. You can go explore and,
Mhm.
see how you feel in that." Um, so that's kind of what we ended up doing, but, like, it got really messy really quickly.
Mhm.
Um, even though we, tried to have, conversations of, like, how that would look like and, like, boundaries or whatever, but, it is really just about just bringing forward those hard conversations, and it's gonna be messy, it's gonna be hard, you're gonna stumble on your words, there's gonna be lots of tears and, like, uncomfortable situations and sensations in your body, like, your throat's gonna be like a little frog that's, like, mousing out the words and, like, a huge pit in your stomach and, like, all kinds of icky feelings, but, like, knowing why you are even having these conversations, Why you are even in that situation is because there is a deeper feeling that, like, maybe this isn't it. Um, and if this is it, how can we get it to be where it needs to be to
Mhm.
feel in its full integrity going forward for where both of you are in life? Because
Yeah.
we change so much as humans, going through like deep journeys and just with life, like you change and evolve as a person over time. And so checking in to see where each of you are and like making sure your paths are still aligned like that.
I think that's so important and something that a lot of people just kind of get comfortable and then just accept that the relationship is the way it is and they don't really do the work. And truly, it all comes down to just being comfortable and safe in your vulnerability and
Mhm.
owning your truth. And that is so hard to do sometimes. Like you said, the feelings, the icky feelings that come up, and then just, a gentle reminder that it all passes. Even the stickiest, shittiest feelings you've ever felt in your life,
Mhm.
they're fleeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then I would love for you've mentioned quite a few times how you've grown as a person and how in that relationship you felt like you were evolving. And I would love to know like what that journey looked like for you. Like what was there something that sparked your curiosity there and took you down a bunch of rabbit holes and you're like, oh, I have control of how I grow and how I evolve in this lifetime.
Whew, that's a whole other journey in itself. But, I mean, even just, like, from being in a queer relationship, I had, like, shaved hair, like, short hair, and, like, I was dressing, like, completely differently, and, um, music taste, like, my exterior was completely different than it is now, and I think just slowly over time, I was deepening in my spiritual journey, like, I was, well, first of all, I was working at a job where it was very physically taxing. So I threw out my back a couple of times. And so that kind of forced me to have a better relationship with my body.
Mhm.
And so I started doing yoga, I started working out, and my eating habits were completely changing, not to like lose weight or anything, but just so I would feel better in my body and like heal my back. So that kind of, you know, started kind of dominoing into a lot of different things. And as my spirituality was deepening, I was coming to meditation and like learning to connect with myself and my body more. My external world was changing too. And that's kind of how I fell into like women's work as I was just finding different things online and finding different ways to connect with myself and with my body and learning the power of the womb space in general. I was just like, oh, like my whole world changed. I was like, this is possible. I didn't know this was a thing. And that's crazy, and so all of these things at once were just kind of coming to like a head. And I was just like expanding so much. Right. And so one of those parts was taking a look at like my relationship. And I was like, huh, is this for me still? Um,
Mhm.
so yeah. And within kind of going through like the breakup, my life was kind of crumbling in certain areas. And so, um, within that, right before that time, I was kind of starting to try and like build my own business, and do the women's work thing. But as my relationship was crumbling, I was like, I need to put a pause on this because I can't serve from this space right now.
Mhm.
Um, so I had to, go through all of those things and come to this place. And now I'm in this, happy relationship, engaged to a man and with a baby that I feel I'm in a space that I can kind of slowly come back to the work that helps me change my life.
I love that. What a beautiful, like, full circle moment when you look around and you're like, "I'm here. I'm living in this life that I had dreams about. What the heck?" So, before we hop into that and how it feels to be living, like, the reality that you saw for yourself, years ago, you mentioned there were a couple of things that fascinated you about the womb space, and I would love for you to just go into that a bit further and expand on what you meant by that.
The first time that, like, I really connected with my womb space, I was just taking, like, this free, somatic class online. I don't know why I was drawn to it, but I was. Um, and I was guided into a journey to, like, go down deep into the earth, into the womb space of the earth, and connect that to the power of my womb. And just the feeling that I felt of, like, what we moved through earlier was just, like, feeling that life force in your womb and in your own body. That is the energy that you are capable of connecting to at any time. That's mine, that I can work with and that I can use to help navigate my life. I was like, "Excuse me? No one told me this before. What?" And just deepening that relationship, and, like, the more I would connect to it, the easier it was, and the more, like, present I felt walking through my life and, like, navigating it from that, like, more grounded place and, like, to my own energy instead of just kind of, like, sleepwalking through life almost, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so that just blew my mind, and it helped change my life, so mm,
Absolutely, and that's such a good reminder for me too because and this is for everybody, we sometimes we tap into tools that we really are like, "Wow," like, whenever I'm spiraling, this really helps me, but occasionally when you're in the actual moment of the spiral, it's like all of those tools go out the window and you completely forget, like, I actually have this whole toolbox to help me in these situations,
Mhm,
and for me, the you can feel such a difference between when you're in your head and that's where it all lives, like, that's where, like, the fears and the spiraling and the doubts and the worries and the what ifs and the stories, all of it is living up there, and it's like well, for those of you on Spotify, you can't see my hands right now, but this mess, this is a complete, like, web of mess, and truly taking a moment to tap down, feel back down into your body, connect with your womb, connect with the earth. It takes that energy and it completely calms the
mhm.
spiral that's happening in your mind. I don't know if you've had experiences like that for yourself too.
Absolutely, it's just kind of like turning down the volume in your brain and bringing
Yeah.
it into your body and realizing that, oh, it's just sensation that lives in the body that
Mhm.
you know, and your mind likes to attach stories and dialogue and all of these things to it.
Yes, it does, and it is damn good at that, isn't it? So now coming back to, this current moment, and you feel like you're living, like, the life that you saw for yourself, so this is twofold too, so I'd love for you to go into, like, how that feels to be like, "Oh, I'm actually sitting in this life I envisioned for myself," and then also when the moment comes of like, "Okay, now I have this life I've seen for myself, and now what's next?"
Well, that's kind of where I am. I'm like, this is the life that I envision for myself, and it it's still so wild that I'm here, first of all, and I'm, like, so incredibly grateful for it. But the now what is what's getting me. Like, what's next? And to me, that is just kind of building that soul-led business that I have desired in my heart for so long.
Mhm.
But now that I feel like I'm actually in a place to devote myself to that. So
Yeah.
that's where I am.
And that's such human nature, right? Like that is how we are wired. We always are wired to like move towards something. And so it doesn't matter what it is you're moving towards. As soon as you get that thing, it's almost just like a check. Cool. Glad this happened. I kind of knew it was going to happen anyways. Here we are. Fantastic. Now what do I want to do? And this took me a while to kind of come to terms with because I was like, why am I always wanting to change shit up? Like, every time I actually acquire the thing that I really, really wanted, why can't I just sit in that and relish it for a while before my brain just hops to, "Okay, cool, this is great, now what?" And so what advice would you have for people of actually being able to be okay with that as part of you, but how to actually relish, like, in the moment of what you have created for yourself?
Just keep bringing in that gratitude for where you are and like take a second to look back at your life and realize that this is what you dreamt for and that you are now in that reality and you created that or co-created that and just soak that in. Like have
Mhm.
so much gratitude for that and just life itself, just walk out the door and feel the sun on your skin and the birds chirping in the background and just hold that for a second, hold that
Mhm.
this life and this moment and that vision that you had for yourself that you are now in, just holding so much gratitude for that so that the next time you're in it and that new dream that you have in your heart that you want to create, you can hold bigger gratitude for that moment too.
Absolutely. And, sometimes when we're moving through life really quickly and we do have this like evidence of, okay, like I really am pretty freaking powerful and I can start to create the things I want, then our dreams and our expectations get a little bigger. And then sometimes that scares the shit out of us because then the fears and the doubts and everything comes back in and you're like, wait a second, am I actually capable of this? And I read a book, I can't think of the name right now, something about 10xing yourself. And something that I really latched onto there was instead of looking to the future and seeing yourself in that story and measuring the distance between who you are now and who you want to be, that's when you come up with all of the excuses of, oh, I've never done this. I've never done XYZ before. I have no idea how to do it. How the hell am I going to get there? Instead, switch that. And from where you are currently, look back in your life to everything you've accomplished, even though you didn't know how the hell you were going to do it and how you were going to get here, and use that as evidence to move you forward. Because a lot of times you don't know how you did something until you did it. And it all starts with just taking action, being messy. And I would love for you, you're in that creation moment right now of, I want to start this business. I don't know like exactly how. I don't know exactly how it's going to look like, but I'm trusting. And so just how you trusted in finding this person, it seems like now you're moving that same core of trust into, now I believe I can create this. And I would love for you to walk us through what that process has looked like for you.
We weren't given a guidebook for life.
Nope.
There was no script, there was no nothing. We just did it. Like you said, looking back at our life, we just did that, you know? There were and, now, like, going forward, like, there is no, like, evidence of me being successful in this business. There was no evidence of me being successful in finding, the man that I'm gonna marry or anything like that, but it just starts from that place in your heart that you envision, 1, and 2, you have to start somewhere, you know? And it's not gonna be perfect, and you can't, like, edit something that you haven't started. You just have to start and, like, start to trust yourself that you can do it, and then eventually you will get to a place where, like, I don't it's, like, better, I don't know, like, more polished, like, for me, I'm, like, kind of like a perfectionist, and it's like, "Oh, well, if I'm not gonna be great at it, like, immediately, like, I don't I don't wanna do
Mhm.
it." But you have to start somewhere, you know?
Mhm.
And
You said
so
something very key. You can't edit what you haven't started, and
Mhm.
that's so true. Like, if you haven't started, you don't have any of the learnings. You haven't messed up to be like, "Oh, wait, this isn't actually how I do it, but I will figure out how to do it," and that is so important because you don't have the material to work with until you just start, and it is messy when you just start. You just have to, even if you're a perfectionist, you just have to be like, "Okay, I am going to just start in the messy middle and figure it out." And so it sounds like you do have those tendencies of, "Oh, I don't even want to start if it's not gonna be perfect and everything's not gonna be great at the beginning." And so, like, how are you yourself, like, coaching yourself through that and being okay with being messy?
Um, just trying to catch where my, like, inner critic is talking
Mhm.
mostly, and that voice who says, like, "Well, it's not gonna be good enough," or "You're too scared," like, all these, like, things that are just wanting to hold me back, like, that voice is the voice that is wanting to hold me back from my expansion. But the vision in my heart and, like, the deep knowing and trust that I have in God that it is going to happen is where I wanna lead from.
I think a theme of this podcast, has really been that trust and that belief. And that is at the heart of why this podcast was created, because I really believe that when we hear other people who have tapped so deeply into their own trust and their belief, that it sparks that fire inside of us and those listening of like, okay, I can do this too. And so for those listening, if you have any thoughts on your mind of like how people can just deepen this trust and this belief within themselves.
It takes a lot of practice, and honestly, I feel like you kinda have to be, like, a little delusional to to believe it, especially with, like, that, like, inner critic voice that is, like, trying to hold you back so much.
You can trust and you can have that belief in yourself, and you just have to figure out a way to make it stronger than those voices in your head trying to hold you back.
Just gotta full send it. Just
You
go
gotta
off.
full send it. You really do. And that looking back on your life and seeing like, okay, I have done this before. Surely there is somewhere in your life that you have done something that you were like, I don't actually know if this is going to work out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it anyways because I feel like I should. And maybe that was before you even had any idea of like your intuition or this inner knowing guiding you in the right direction. And you just had a feeling and you didn't know what that feeling was. Look back on your life and find those moments where you just had a feeling of, I think I should do this.
Exactly. And just
Mhm.
follow that because it's gonna take you to wonderful, beautiful freaking places where you're gonna just, like, look around and say, "Holy shit, I did this.
Mhm.
I freaking did this," and that is amazing.
Yes, and knowing and being able to hold the pressure of when things feel like they're all crumbling and not working out, that that is just fleeting. That's a part of life. That is being human. We feel the whole range of emotions, good and bad, for what it is,
Mhm.
and just knowing that that's gonna pass, and even though it feels like a shitty, crappy moment, you have your eye on the bigger picture, and you have tuned in to your trust and your heart and your belief. And so with all of that being said, do you have any final thoughts or anything on your heart that you just wanted to say before we wrap up the conversation?
Just a reminder that you are capable of doing great things,
Mm.
even if it's hard and scary and terrifying, and you've never done something like that before, but tapping into your inner knowing to know that, like, those desires that you have in your heart and your soul, you are worth those because we are sent here on this earth to do great things, and that is, like, our purpose is to follow that drive within ourselves, and you can do it.
I love that. And maybe one more thing, since a lot of this podcast was about, almost like finding the courage to leave something that you feel like just is no longer a part of your path and you see something bigger for yourself. And maybe just a few words of encouragement for somebody who's listening to this who finds himself in that same situation of having to have the hard conversation and moving forward into the unknown without any guarantees.
Just like when I was going through that, first initial breakup, just having a lot of grace for yourself, um, and let yourself feel those feelings. Let yourself feel the grief and, um, for have gratitude for the relationship that it was,
Mhm.
even if it's no longer serving you. Just hold that and let it be, and let yourself grieve for however long you need to, and just know that there is another side to it, because it's all gonna fluctuate at some point, and, you're gonna find yourself eventually in a very beautiful place on the other side.
Mhm. I love that, and something very important too before we end, you said, even though if it's no longer serving you, I personally believe that everything we go through in life has its lessons, and there surely were probably many, 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 many parts of that relationship that did serve you at such a beautiful
Mhm.
way for who you were at that moment. And, really looking back and seeing like, wow, maybe this was hard, but I grew so much from this experience. Or, wow, sometimes, just the way they looked at me made me feel more loved than I had ever felt in my life. And just being very thankful for the experience that you had, even though you feel like ending it is the best thing.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you were in that situation for a reason, you know? In regards to, like, a romantic relationship, like, you found each other for a reason. You were in a romantic relationship for a reason, especially if it's, like, long term. Like, there's a lot of love there, and you have to
Mhm.
have a lot of love for the versions of yourselves that were in that, and you guys grew a lot within that and made you who you are now, the one ready
Exactly.
to expand.
Yes. Yes, the one ready to expand. I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation, very illuminating for me. Like I shared earlier, the timing of this was wild considering where I'm at currently. And that's why I know these podcasts work so much because everyone I can feel in my heart, I can see a piece of
Mhm.
myself in every conversation I have with somebody. And so I know and I trust that the people listening can see that for themselves too. So, Megan, thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I'm so happy to have met you. And thank you to all of those listening.
Thank you so much for having me.